I would like to tell you where I was born, in a little place called Craigneuk in Lanarkshire, Scotland. It was a little mining village, and my father was co-owner of a little mine there. There was 2 magnificent castles, one at either side of the village, maybe 2 miles apart. And one belonged to the Duke of Hamilton, who was the Lord Provost of Scotland. The other was Lord Belhaven, who apparently had done wonderful deeds in battle and had been given this wonderful castle. Now these 2 wonderful people, the castles were carte blanche for everybody. Everybody could walk there. They had beautiful animals, beautiful gardens and trees, and the River Clyde ran past both of these castles, and they were really beautiful. And the miners, they really could go use everything. They really were great. And actually, economy-wise, the miners made a lot of money from working with these castles and doing gardening, extra things. And so it was a very Shangri-La of a place to live in. And so my mother and father, my father, when he was 12 years old, his father died. And there was 5 more children. And they lived in a little farming place, and they were very, very poor, and they only spoke the Gaelic language. And when my father was 12, he was hired to go somewhere and work to help with the children when his father died. And the story that I have to tell is a true one. He worked in this farm, and then this gentleman said to him, when his time was over, Michael, you're very smart, and you should go somewhere else to work. I have friends in this place in Scotland, and they would love you to go there. So off he went. And he got a job as a water boy when the trains came in. And one day, this very handsome lady and this man were walking in the tracks, and he came with the water. And she started to talk to him, and he said she had white kid boots on. He had never seen anybody with white kid boots on, so he was very impressed with that. So she talked to him, but he didn't understand her because he couldn't speak the English language. And she called somebody over, and she asked him why he wasn't talking. And he told me he only speaks the Gaelic language. And she said, when I come back the next time, I want you to send that young boy to school so that he'll learn the English language. And so they sent him to school. And it wasn't until the next year when she came back again and asked where he was, and he read the book to her that he had learned. And it so happened it was Queen Victoria and Prince Albert that he met when he was like 13 years old. So my father, really, from that point on, he became a very big royalist, and he was until the day he died, because she was the only one that gave him any kind of confidence. She says, you go work for yourself. So he did. And so when he was about 19, he bought a partnership in this coal mine. And he went back to his village, and he found my mother. And she was a little pupil teacher. So he asked her to marry him and to come back to the village in Scotland, and that would be it. And my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was very angry because he thought my father was a bit of a dandy and very, very self-confident. And his oldest daughter wasn't married yet. Now, in those days, the oldest daughter had to get married first, before the others. So my father got fed up waiting after a year, and he says, come on, you're coming with me, I don't care, we're going to get married. And they did. And they went back to Scotland, and that's the first 2 children she had, they died, infant mortality. And she was really broken-hearted. And they had 3 ministers in the village, and my mother asked them to pray that she could have children. But once she had about 10, she told them, are you still praying? Because it's okay, I don't want any more children. So she finished up with 12, and I was the youngest. And my oldest sister was a very, very brilliant woman, very pretty girl. And she was educated in England. And then the next one was Sally, and she was educated in Glasgow, became a very, very famous a headmistress of school. And Annie, the oldest one, was responsible for bringing medication to the school children of Scotland. She set up a program for them. And once a year, the doctors and nurses would go to every school to make sure that those kids were healthy. So she really did a lot of good work. My oldest brother, Pat, was a very handsome man, but he didn't like to work too much. But he was very charming. And then he disgraced the family. He was supposed to marry this girl, very nice girl, and he ran away to Paris with somebody else. And so he was really, we never talked about him because that was a very bad thing he did. And so he stayed in England, and he married this other lady, and he had 3 children. And then Jim was the musician, and he's the one who sang with the Doily Cart and opera with Fritz Wunderlich. And he took over the coal company with my father, and he was a wonderful, really handsome, very, very nice guy. And then there was Terry, and she went to Withington Hospital, and she became a nurse too. And she came back, and the war was on, and she was in D-Day. And then there was Peter, very brilliant Peter, and he just died last year. And he was a brigadier general in the army during World War II, and happily he survived. My brother was killed in the Battle of Britain, Jim. So Peter came back after the war and went into the company. And after him came Rosaline, and she was very involved with the Royal Air Force, and she came back after the war, married, very nice man with and lovely children, and then it was my turn. And when being the youngest, and I had seen all of the education the rest of them had, and I wasn't interested in teaching, and I didn't want to be nursing, I didn't want to be doing anything like that. And so I was very lucky, because during the war I worked with Sir John Boyd Orr for the Battle of Britain. And that's how people were really healthy, because of the diet that he had. There was no food. And so when the war was over, I went to, first of all, Girls' College Ogilvy for all young ladies, right? And then I went into Edinburgh and into social science, and was taught by Carl Jung, because he had gone to Scotland to escape the army, whatever, in Europe. And so I was lucky that I had him for a teacher for quite a long time. Also, his pet pupil, Baroness van Height, who was one of Carl Jung's pet pupils. She's still very famous, or she's dead long ago. And as soon as I graduated, I was appointed to the Scottish Education Department. And it was in the Further Education Department. And these were for children who had not been educated during the war, and they really didn't know what to do with them. So I was one of the people who set up these programs in music and drama and art, so that they would be educated. And consequently, today, that is still a wonderful thing to do. If they couldn't pass exams, they had an opportunity of learning other things in music and drama and art, but it didn't eliminate them from going back to the university, because if they passed the exam again, they could still go. So I worked with the London Education Department and the Shakespearean Company and the leading orchestras, and once a year we had a huge festival, and it was very, very popular. And a lot of these young people who became great in drama, like Sean Connery, Anthony Hopkins, they were a part of that program. Sean Connery sold milk. And look, he was a wonderful actor, and that was it. And when I was doing this job, and I had to go all around the country to the schools, find out these kids were going to be educated or not. And it was during that time, I'd been there for about 3 years, when my friend got a grant to come to America. And when she called me on Christmas Day, and she says, I got a grant to go to America. She had just finished medicine, all right? And she says, why don't you come? And I said, I don't want to come, I had a car. And my mother says, you children had a bad time during this war. Why don't you go for a year? So I got the grant. And so before I even had time to think, we were on the Queen Elizabeth coming to America. And I got here, and they had promised, that we were going to be getting paid. And we came in on Monday, and on Wednesday, they sent for us. We were living just nearby where I am now. And they sent for us to come to be interviewed. So we went. And after they showed us all those things she had to do in the hospital, and I was doing this with social science stuff, all of this stuff. And I got back to the university, and they said, Miss Macaulay, you're very young to have done all of this stuff. I don't know if we can pay you so much. And I says, what's that got to do with me, how young I am? I says, that's my record, that's what I do. And they said, hey, well, we'll have to review this again. So I said, don't bother. Because I said, I'll just go right back where I came from, and I think you've treated this very, in not a very nice way. And I said, I don't think I'd be interested in working here anyway, and studying. So suddenly, I had this mentor, and I called him, and I says, I'm not interested in working with these people anymore. I think that's a rotten thing they did. And he says, I'll arrange the whole thing differently. So he did. And so I studied, and I did the social science thing, and I interviewed for 1 year. For 1 year. And in that year, I met my husband, and he was a commander in the Navy, and he was doing his law. And we met, and he used to show us how to get around the city and stuff like that. So when the year was up, we were ready to go back to Scotland. We only had 1 year. You only had 1 year. And then my husband came to Scotland. We were married. The rest is history. And I don't know if we should proceed anymore with that, because, it was, so we were married, and that was it. And my 2 children, Joseph was born, and then Rosalie. And spent my time in Scotland in the summers and here, and then bought the house in Long Beach Island, and that was it. Now this is an old song, an old Scottish song. In those days, this is how you were taught the facts of life when you were a young lady living in your family. And this was an old song that used to be in the Gaelic language. So there's things that are different. But I'd like you to know it, because this is what my father sang to us. Come all you lads and lassies, come listen to my rhyme. I'll tell you of a young one who courted in her prime. Her cheeks, they were a rosy red. She was admired by all around, and she was called the Bloomin' Caroline of Edinburgh town. Young Henry, being a Highland lad, a-courting her he came. And when her parents knew of it, they were angry just the same. And Henry, being offended, and unto her did say, "Call, rise up, my bloomin' Caroline, with me to run away to London, send good speed, 'cause it's there that we'll live happy there indeed." She bundled up her costly robes, the tears came rolling down, and away went bloomin' Caroline from Edinburgh town. Over rocky hills and mountains this couple they did roam. Over rocky hills and valleys far from her native home. And some on the way did pity her, and others on her front. Don't you remember the day you ran away from Edinburgh town. They were not long in London, but scarcely half a year, when cruel-hearted Henry on her he proved severe. He said, "My dear, I'm bound for see your parents on me front, so without delay go beg your way to Edinburgh town." She turned her back unto the clock and then began to cry as she saw those little sailing boats so merrily passing by. 3 cheers she gave for Henry, and on him then did frown. "Oh, don't you remember the day we ran away from Edinburgh town?" Her bonnet and cloak likewise a note she left upon the door, and on this note these words she wrote, that she would be no more. She's in the deep, lies fast asleep, the small fish all swim round, and she's no more the blooming Caroline of Edinburgh town. This song was the song the last song that I remember that my brother sang before he was killed, and it's really a lovely song, and it's just something I remember, and I'd like to sing. Do you recall that night in June when first we met? Do you remember, love, the words we spoke? Have you forgotten all the tender vows we made? In the silent, magical moonbeams' light, gone are the golden dreams with summer roses, and all our tenderest vows were made but to be broken. Song of songs, song of June and love, beneath the stars, amid the roses. Oh, dream of delight that faded at dawn. Oh, song of songs, oh, night of bliss, when you were my whole world of love. Then today I hear that nightingale within that garden fair sing as he sang when you were by my side. I see your eyes reveal the love no words can tell, and I know 'twas destiny made you mine. Why should that robin sing when you have vanished, and all our tender vows were made but to be broken? Song of songs, song of June and love, beneath the stars, amid the roses. Oh, dream of delight that faded at dawn. Oh, song of songs, oh, night of bliss, when you were my whole world of love. Now, this is a song that my husband just loved. It's an old Scottish song, and it was written a long, long time ago, and everybody seems to like it. And as a matter of fact, when my husband died, bagpipers played it, okay? So this is the one that he loved. There was a soldier, a Scottish soldier, who wandered far away and soldiered far away. There was none bolder, with good broad shoulder. He fought in many a fray and fought and won. He'd seen the glory, he'd told the story of battles glorious and deeds victorious. But now he's sighing, his heart is dying for on those green hills of Tyrone. Because those green hills are not Highland hills, all those Highland hills, they're not Highland hills. And fair as these green foreign hills may be, they are not the hills of home. And so that soldier, that Scottish soldier, who wandered far away and soldiered far away, sees leaves are falling and death is calling, and he will fade away in that fair land. He called his piper, his trusty piper, and bade him sound a lay of heroes sad to play. And on a hillside, a Scottish hillside, you'll hear that piper play that soldier home. He's told the story, he's told the story of battles glorious and deeds victorious. The bugles cease now, he is at peace now, far from those green hills of Tyrone. Because those green hills are not Highland hills, all those Highland hills, they're not Highland hills. And fair as these green foreign hills may be, they are not the hills of home. Oh, now I want you to do something. I found out when I came to this country that, you know, people were very, very sad, and they had to leave their friends and everything else. And so when I came here, I met a Gaelic singer, and he taught me this song. And my family have a farm in Ireland, so we always loved the Irish people and had a wonderful, wonderful life there. And this was done in the Gaelic language. But now I have all the words in English. And it will make you realize how sad people were to leave their native land and possibly never come back again. So this is one, and this is the last one, okay? Dear Danny, I'm taking the pen in my hand to tell you I'm just out of sight of the land. On a grand ocean liner, I'm sailing in style, but I'm sailing away from the Emerald Isle, and a long sort of sigh seems to come over all as that ship sees the last bit of old Donegal. Oh, it's well to be you that is taking your tea where they're cutting the corn in old Christland today. Goodbye to you, Danny, no more's to be said, but I think the salt water has got into my head, for it drips from my eyes as I call to mind the friends and the gossips I'm leaving behind. But still you might say a tear in your eye and a break in your voice when you said you might stay, or please God you'll come home to old Christmas someday. Isn't that sad? The song is really a very haunting one, and I think it's a very culture song. Wagon streets sing low above, there grows a lily fair, the twilight gleams in her eyes, the night is on her hair, and like the rose of the land and shield, she spells the box to her. No life I own, nor liberty, for love is Lord of all. And often when the beetle calls and all leaves to sleep, I creep on to her shieling low, and through the door we peep. There on the creep and singing stone, she spells a box to her, and sings in soft, sweet undertone her songs of heart's desire. Well, Chris wants me to play Maggie's song. And this is an old Scottish song that was written long ago, from this dear man who loved his wife and was getting old, and so he wrote this song. I wander today o'er the hills, Maggie, to watch the scene below. The mill and the old rusty bridge, Maggie, where we sat in the days long ago. Oh, the green grass is gone from the hills, and Maggie, where first